Funding for The Router Workshop is provided in part by Hitachi Power Tools, manufacturers of a full range of construction and woodworking power tools. A vintage crescent table provided the inspiration for today's project in the Router Workshop. Bob uses another interesting jig to cut the delicately tapered and sculptured legs, while Rick shows you the secrets of the half-round top. As beautiful as it is functional, the crescent table is sure to become one of your favorite projects. Coming up next in the Router Workshop.
Welcome to the Router Workshop. Dad, what are we doing today?
Well, we got a nice crescent table here. It's got some real detailed legs on it. We put some little flutes down in the face, just on the one side of it. So if we tip it down, Rick, we got a lot of circle work.
Right. I'm going to go ahead and do the two rails that are tying the panel pieces in place in here and the top itself, and you're going to work on the legs, are you? All right. Well, I'm going to get back to my area there and get started on the top. Well, let's get started on this crescent table here. I'm going to put on my safety gear first, and the thing we're going to do here to start with is let's just take a look at the equipment that we're using here. We're using a circle jig, and I've already laid out the different distances or radiuses that I want to use. The first one I'm working on is the top, which is what we're doing here, and our radius is set at 15 inches. I'll move this out of the way so you can see where our centerpiece is. We have our full piece of material in place, and I have it just tacked in a couple of places so it's not moving around, and we got her set up on the top. This is the pin here that's going to allow us our center, and we're going to use this pin for both the bottoms and the sides and all the rails as well, and we're going to get a nice even round on it. But to start with, let's just work on the top. The bit we've got in here is a 3/8 spiral bit. If I run that through so you can see it, this is the 3/8 spiral bit, and it's going to allow us to cut through this and cut on both sides of the pieces. So it's not too much trouble with that. When it's cutting on both sides, it works just as even on one side as it does on the other. You don't have any tear out or anything with it. To set the depth, what I did is because I'm using my sub base, all I did was run over the bit to the edge, drop it down till it touched or bottomed out onto the sub base, and then I just added a little bit so that we make sure that we're cutting into the sub base while we're making the cuts. Well, let's get started here. We'll unlock this and bring it up. First thing we need to do is plug it in, and we'll get some power on, make sure it's in an off position before we start. And let's find, the next thing we want to do is I've marked this on a piece of tape, and then I've got the 15-inch radius marked here. All I need to do is locate that over the nail or the center radius, and we're ready to go here. And let's get started. Now, before I take this apart, I want to make sure that I'm gone right through here because we don't want to have to start all over again. And do I see the plywood down on the bottom there? I think we do. And let's take our pieces on the outside here, come off. And there's our top. All that we need left to do on that is go ahead and round over the pieces. So let's take the router off here for a second, set it over to the edge. And let's clear off the sawdust, get rid of the excess. Well, hey, we've got an arch here for another project. We'll just set that aside or drop it on the edge. And clean off our sawdust. That's one thing about a workshop, it's always full of dust. And let's remove our pieces here. And there's the top of our table, looking all nice. All we have to do is round over the edges for the pieces. All right, let's set that up there so I can get at it for round over. And let's get our pieces that I need for the rails. What I've done with that is right where the center piece is in place, what we've done is we've drawn a straight line down the middle. Now, because we're making the rails, we've cut them on a 45 so that they're not going to be just have to line them up in place. And let's get rid of the dust in here. Set it up, and I'm going to just tack them in place. Where I've got it set is in behind, so when we put the screws in, they're going to be in here too. You don't want to put them out in the middle here because that's where your exposed edges are. And we'll line it up to the line so we can keep it in position. And get my hammer here. Give it a tack. Tack that right down to the bottom. Hit the other one. Tack it in place. And slide the next piece in place so we've got it so they match. And get that over. All right, let's bring it back to our router again. The operation's exactly the same, but this time what we're doing is we're moving in. Set the depth again on this one, make sure I got it the right depth. Drop it down, loosen this off. Our bottom rails here are just a little bit thinner than the top. We want to keep that about a 1 inch, and we've got 3/4 here, so you don't want to be going way down too deep into your sub base. And we'll get her set up. And let's, in position, let's make the cuts. Everything's tacked down solid. Start her up. Now that's the outside. Now what we need to do is move it on to the inside. Run. Okay. All right. Now that we found the other hole, let's cut it again. Next, we chucked up a 3/16 spiral bit and bushing, set the depth of the bit, and cut the grooves for the plywood, which will be the facing of the table. Now, I've already set up the bit, which is a 1/4 inch round over, and I'll show that to you right now. The only thing we want to do is set the height up so that we're just touching the edge here. We want to be flush, so there's no line or anything. We just want to round over the edge. So we've set the height up. That might have moved on me a little bit, so I'll get it right on the area. I'll just show you the shot that I'm looking for. I'm looking right here to make sure that I can get it right on the line. Just like that. All right? We'll drop it back down. Let's get a safety guide pin in place. And let's go ahead and finish rounding off all these pieces. Now I'm going to round off all but the top area on this one here. And we'll change the power here to another power. And let's do that.
Well, first off, let me show you what we've got here. We've got a fixture to making those legs. And the fixture itself, again, we've used a piece of phenolic in it. It's a little different this time because it's very narrow at the back side. I put a piece of sandpaper here to give a little grip, so when I lock down on it, it will hold it. But the other end is very difficult to do that. So we put a pin in it. And I'll turn it around here, maybe we can have a look. I've got a brass pin in the bottom, and that would work. Just an ordinary dowel pin will work too. And then on the leg itself, we've drilled a hole in it, and we've drilled a hole down in the bottom. So that hole now goes over the pin, gives you location in it. So when we lock it into place, we just take and put that in like that, slide it over, put the hole down, and now we got it. If you see, we got the leg protruding over the pattern. But I've got a guide in here and a straight bit, and that'll come right along here and cut it. So now let me just tip that router up and let you have a look at what I do have here. Got about a 3/4 inch guide in it. Remember, the nice thing about guides is that if you take off a little bit on a cutter like that and you want to take off more, all you got to do is reduce the size of the guide. But remember, don't get it to run too close to the bit. Give the bit clearance to do it with. Now, the only thing we have to do here, and it is just a straight bit in it, but it's a very long one. We got a long cutting edge on it, probably a little over 2 inches on it. And my leg is about 1.5 inches, so we got lots of space in it. What we'll do is set this up, drop it in here. I'm not sure of the height, whether I need that much or not, but once we set it down here, we can tell. I'll get down a little closer to the height of it. Now, we don't have no guard over that. What you need is put a guard on top when you're at it, but just because the cameras want to have a look in here too, we don't put it inside. Now, see this big peg that I've got here? That keeps your hand up off of it. And remember, there's a tail by here that I can run up to before it comes to the bit, and that guide will prevent it from doing. Now, I've got 3 of these to do, and I'm going to go down here and cut. Then I'm going to turn the fixture around, and I'm going to come up in here and cut too. And it doesn't matter which side you start. However, we've got these 3 legs to do in it, and when I cut, I'm cutting down grain here. But as I get down to here, I'm cutting up grain, so you have to feed it a little slower because it may tear it out. And as in the reverse in here, I'm coming up grain, and then I'm coming down again. So you get a pretty hard thing to get it both the same here, so you got to cut a little caution when we do it. Okay, let's get some power in here, and we'll cut these 3 legs first to shape. Okay, we got those legs molded to shape. Now we need to do is put that fancy little bead on it, so we need to change cutters in here. In the meantime, we'll unplug. One thing about the routing business, you sure kick up a lot of dirt. And we'll take this guide off of here. That's a long cutter on it, so I'll leave the ring nut on until I get the bit loose. And we're going to put that nice beading bit in. I'll install the bit first, and then I'll let you have a look at what I got. Get that pulled out of here. And we'll tighten it down. Now, you can see the little beads we've got in it. What those are going to do, it'll be opposite to what you see on the cutter. It'll make little coves in it as opposed to the little knobs you see in it. But that's the decorative side. Now, the height of that, we want to center that on it. So if we put this cutter inside of here, we want to center them flutes on it, and then we're going to round the outside edges. So I think I'm very close there. I'm going to put a little pencil mark on it. And then we'll just reverse that. And what I did was I centered it to the bottom one. You reverse it, center the top. That way you know your center. Now we got locked into place. Put it in here. And we should use a safety pin. So we'll put a pin inside of here. Now, remember it's the face side. On that face side, there's a couple of little spots that I very nearly touched here and some didn't. It's not going to show because this bit now is going to take that. And I'm going to start right at the crown of that. We'll start at that and come across. Well, that's not going to give you a very good view there maybe, so I'm going to try to switch that over. What it does is put my switch in a different location, so if you see me hunting there, you know what I'm hunting for. Okay, let's try it. We need to get some power. Now, having got those little flutes put in here, the next operation is that we've got to put a groove in here to let that plywood, curved plywood, to go in. Just going to stop for a second here and let you have a look. I've got this one done. This one's the opposite way, so I'm going to have to turn it this direction. You could do is put a stop block just for a safety thing, but because of the bit being that small, you won't get much of a kick on it, because what it does is always go straight to the fence. It doesn't come straight back. And I'll just pin this with my fingers and drop it down again. That's a safe enough way. You could put a block in if you wish. Now we got to do is round the edges off. So we round all these edges, which means bit change again. One thing Bob gets lots of practice doing is changing router bits. I like the 2-wrench system because you can squeeze them together to get it apart. That always helps. And the round over bit, we've got to take this brass bushing out of here now. We'll take them apart, and we'll put the bit in. We're just going to do all the edges of the legs on the inside and the out. Kind of dresses them up a little bit. And we'll set it up here. There's that round over. It is a 1/4 round over, and it's a 1/4 inch radius on it. So we'll lock that in here, set it up, and pop it down. Now, I don't think we're going to be able to see very good that way, so we'll turn it this direction, put my safety pin in, and we'll do the edges. Now, the leading edges, we have to do both sides. And I suppose we should have some power, plug it in, and ready to go. Not a good problem. See what happened in here? It wants to cut in and follow inside of it. I'm going to have to lower it down because I got too much. I don't have anything for the pilot to ride on. I'm going to turn it this direction first so I can see, and then I'll let you have a look too. I'm going to find my catch now that it's on, switched in the back side here. I was just a little bit deep with what I needed there. Now you can see I've got room to ride. Now, one thing I didn't show you, we cheat a little bit once in a while. We've got a notch in here, and I cut that prior to showing here. What I'd like to do is take a block and show you how to cut that safely in it. It's done with the router, but I need to change cutters in it. And the cutter that I'm going to put in here, we'll use, see I get that router coming out wrong after I've made a part of a turn with it, and we'll unplug it. I think I've got a 3/4 inch straight bit that I've got here, and we'll use it to cut that with. It is a 1/2 inch shank, so I get this bit out of here. And, of course, that little sleeve doesn't always want to come with the cutter as easily as it should. And we get that out. And I'll show you the bit here. And tighten it down. Now, what we need to do is have 3/4 of an inch deep. We'll take that in consideration here. I got a 1/2 and 1/4 inch brass fitting. We'll just tap that back, and there we go. There's the depth. There's the bit, 1/2 inch, flat on the bottom. Pop it in, and we need a fence. Now, here, from a safety standpoint, and you always got to think about your safety with this, we'll lock the one end clamp down. Remember, that router bit turns in that direction, so it comes inside of here. If you get it on the wrong side, it's going to take you through. So when we stand a piece in, and I'll just use this block in here, we've got to stand this block inside of here. So what happens is you start from this side and you work your way out. And if you work your way out here, you're cutting this material away, you've got no place to set that. Not a very good operation. So you should make yourself a special fence. And here's what I did with the fence. I've got a little notch in the side of this fence, see? And that gives it a room to ride up on top of it. And I see I'm just a little bit deeper than I need to be on that 3/4 in it. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to turn this fence this direction to make the first cut. And then we'll come back. We'll just show you what happens here. And we'll put the next one in. And I need a little push block behind that, just to give me a little stability here. My little peg in it. We'll get some power. We'll make one cut. Now, there we got the first cut. Now, as I keep moving the fence away, I've got no place for it to go. So what we need to do is just change that fence around, put it back in here, and we'll move it up about like that. And got that clamp unwound, tighten it down in. Maybe I can get a little closer than that to the cutter in here. There we go. Now, if you can just have a real close look in here, you'll see that now we have some place to ride with. We've got a riding surface in it, and we can cut the next one. Now, you just keep moving the fence out until you get to the distance that you need.
Now it's time for tips from the workshop, viewer mail, and tricks of the trade on router bits, tips, and wood chips.
Let's take a closer look at our leg fixture here. If you look closely at it, it's got a pin that's mounted right into the fixture. And that positions our legs every time. All we have to do is center a pin here, drill a hole in its place, and push it into position and slide the jig into place. That's going to keep it in position. The other neat thing about this particular jig is on the back, because it's so narrow, the back part of the shoe is a little wider. That gives you a little more stability when you're making that routing. You're pushing it into place, getting it to the bearing. You want to maintain some stability. Now, for your viewing clarity, what we had done is remove the guard off the top of it. But what you want to do at home is get yourself a piece of plastic material, drill a hole in the center of it, put it between you and the shaker peg. Now that you've got a guard over the top of it, you won't have any problems with that interfering with that bit. You also feel a little more comfortable with it. Well, I got the table and the rails down here.
You want to show them what you did there?
Yes, we've got the groove inside, and we've just put the plywood between the two. It's kind of sandwiched in together. It was good. It worked. No problem. Bent good.
Now,
all right, now what we need to do is put the leg in
around there a little bit.
Yeah.
Now get a hold of this, and we'll just put it on.
Make sure this dry fit works. There we go. That goes in there.
Off tension.
Yeah, that's going to be all right. You come back here, and let's see how that one slides in.
Here again, we got
you have to show them that?
Yeah, it comes in there. It just fits in tight. Now, if you can locate it, Rick, I'll get you a leg for your side.
Okay.
See, we got a left and a right in here. So
right. So I've got the left leg that goes down this side. You got the right leg that goes down there. And we need to cut the plywood. Be sure to join Dad and I right here next time in the Router Workshop.
We'd like to hear from you. You can email us at the address on your screen. Send your comments, questions, or project ideas to the Router Workshop, Post Office Box 608, Chamberlain, South Dakota 57325. Or in Canada, the Router Workshop, Post Office Box 280, Ely, Manitoba, ROH-OHO. To learn more about the Router Workshop, visit us at the internet address on your screen. A true European craftsman and his remarkable skill provided the inspiration for our Swiss chair episode on the next Router Workshop. Bob and Rick will show you how to taper the legs with a 45-degree V-groove bit, as well as reveal the secret to cutting perfect angled dowels on the ends of the legs. The remarkable Swiss chair, next time in the Router Workshop. Funding for The Router Workshop is provided in part by Hitachi Power Tools, manufacturers of a full range of construction and woodworking power tools. You can now order router bits, tips, and wood chips, a 45-minute video featuring Bob and Rick Rosendal's personally selected shop tips and router techniques. To order your copy of this home video for $19.95 plus $4.95 shipping and handling, have your credit card ready and call 1-800-803-1449.